Well, here we are. It is a good Tuesday afternoon, and we are beginning a conversation, just a quick chat that we're going to talk about in regard to small business and just really going to talk about small business for real. There are those of you who will be connecting with us on multiple platforms, and we certainly appreciate that. Those of you who are connected. I think it's what Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and we are having this conversation about small business because here I'm at the studio. This is actually Streaming Suites studio in Rock Hill, South Carolina, about 3 to 5 minutes off of the interstate, right off of 77. And um, I was actually sending several emails and had a thought in response to a question that I received maybe about a month and a half ago. And I was thinking about that question and how prevalent it is in regard to small business in general, business or business in general, small business particularly, and really dealing with. There's a lot of conversations being had about business, a lot of conversations being had about what what constitutes success in business. Um, is it a different definition of success for different people? Um, what does success look like in small business? Um, and what I've come to realize, and for those of you who are jumping in, we ask you to put your city and your state in the chat. Just let us know where you're streaming from. If you can put your city and your state in the chat. But the question really centered around what is success in business? Like, what is it really? And I want to say some things that are pretty straightforward. I want to be really straightforward with you because um, there's a lot of maybe esoteric, a lot of good, sincere, flowery types of conversations that are being held, that are being talked about regarding small business or business in general. Being, things about your passion, following your passion, following your heart, things like that. Things like, if you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. I mean, and all of these are great things, great sentiment, and I'm not taking anything away from them in theory. Like theoretically, they are fantastic. If we're just talking academics, and I'm not going to belabor on this, but I remember being in a business class many years ago, about 20 years ago, and the gentleman was teaching entrepreneurship, and it was more than 20 years ago, and it was a 500 level entrepreneurship class. And the gentleman who was teaching the class had never been an entrepreneur. He had never started a business. He had never built a business, but yet he was teaching us entrepreneurship. And I won't go into the dialogue that ensued in that class, but one thing that did come out was he said, Marcus, I'm teaching you guys the theory of entrepreneurship. I'm not teaching you the experience of entrepreneurship. And so I want to be very clear that what I'm talking about here is not theoretical. What I'm talking about here is not um, just sincerity, but this is actually the real world, the real life of starting and running a business. That your passion does matter, your enthusiasm does matter, your desire does matter. Those things do matter. But what matters most is, do you actually have a business? Now, again, their hobbies, their interests, their jobs, but a business isn't any of them. A business isn't a job. A business isn't a hobby. A business isn't an interest. A business is its own entity. I mean, even legally, when you set up a business, you're what? You're getting its own what? Tax ID number. You're getting its own address in many instances. It has its own DUNS number, NA, ICS code. You're setting up a separate entity when you're setting up a business. Thank you guys so very much for jumping on. Just remember, put your city and your state in the chat. We're having a real conversation about business here because when you start a business, you're starting another entity. Now, I know there's some businesses that are out there that have the social security number of the owner, the founder, the entrepreneur, but we all know that's not preferable. We all know that's a very basic form of business, and it's not the most appropriate in any capacity. It's just not the most appropriate. So when you're starting a business that is a separate entity. That means that entity is going to have a life of its own, and that life of its own is an extension of you. I want you to hear me. It has a life of its own, but it is an extension of you. So as you go, it goes. As you grow, it grows. As you decline, it declines. Does that make sense? Because how you grow, how you lead, how you manage, what you come to understand about business, etc., those things directly affect how you lead, which in turn directly affects the decisions you make and directly affects, of course, what happens with the business. So I want to be clear. And again, I'm gonna be on here for about 15 minutes today. So glad you guys are jumping in. Remember, drop your city, drop your state in the chat. We're having a real conversation about small business because I see a lot of people who are starting businesses because they're passionate about something, because they're interested in something. And I see a lot of those same businesses 2 years later, 3 years later, 5 years later, I see them failing and floundering. I see them being unfulfilled, but they're passionate, but I mean, they love what they do. They want to help. They want to do X, Y, or Z. And there's a form of social entrepreneurship, that involves nonprofit business activity, and which is important and which is celebrated. But I'm talking about a for-profit business. A for-profit business exists as a separate legal entity to solve a problem for a group of customers. Let me say that again. A for-profit business exists as a separate legal entity that solves a problem for customers or clients. So that means there's a separate legal entity that has a product or a service, and that product or service solves a problem for a group of customers or a group of clients, which means that if I'm starting a business because I'm passionate about something, that doesn't mean it's actually solving a problem for clients and for customers. I want you to hear what I just said. If I'm starting a business, if a person is starting a business because they are passionate about something, a person may be passionate about drawing or art. A person may be passionate about music. A person may be passionate about, uh, a host of things. Karate. They could be passionate about working out and exercise. There's a lot of things people can be passionate about. And there's nothing wrong with passion, but you have to be able to convert that passion into a legitimate product or service that people, clients or customers are willing to pay you for doing that, or pay you for the service, or pay you for the product. Again, as you guys come in, drop your city and drop your state in the chat. So when we talk about business, when we talk about small business, and we talk about your passion has to be converted to a product or service that people are willing to pay for. Let me say it again. Your passion must be converted into a product or service that people are willing to pay for. And guess what is one of the number one ways you can find out if you have a business? One of the number one ways you can find out if you have a business is to find out and just look and see if anybody else is doing it and if anybody else is making money off of it. See, I want to demystify some of this stuff because you've got a lot of people out here starting all kinds of businesses. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And they say they're an entrepreneur. They say they're a small business owner. They say I'm doing my own thing, etc. But ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. A business is a separate legal entity that exists to provide a product or service that solves a problem for a client or customer. That's what it is. It's not your passion. It's not your baby. It's not your this. It's no, your business doesn't exist for you. It exists for your clients. Let me say that again. Your business doesn't exist for you. It exists for your clients. It exists for them. Your fulfillment should come because they are getting a problem solved. Your fulfillment should not come because you are doing a work. Now, again, I know that's, that's skating on thin ice for some people, but I need for you to understand what I'm saying. If you are satisfied, but you're not making money because people aren't paying you for that product or service, then it doesn't matter that you're satisfied because your business doesn't exist for you. Your business exists for the clients or customers that you work with. Now, from a marketing standpoint, from a niching down standpoint, from a market analysis standpoint, you can certainly work through some of those metrics to work with the kind of people that you want to work with. But I want you to hear me very carefully. If you have to convince people why they need to buy a product or service from you, you're going to fail. I need you to hear me. If you have to convince people why they need to buy your product or service, you're going to fail. See, when we sell, when we market, we're primarily marketing what features and benefits. Let me say that again. When we're selling, when we're marketing, we're primarily selling or marketing features and benefits, which means when people see the features and when they see the benefit or understand the benefit, it should be an easy what transaction, meaning they should be like, oh, if I got the money, I need that, let me buy that, right? But if you have to convince them why they need the features, and if you have to convince them why they need the benefit, you're going to fail in business. So people say, well, Marcus, hold on for a second. I mean, what about innovation? What about creative disruption? What about, what about Uber? I mean, we didn't know we needed Uber until, we had Uber. We didn't know that we needed the iPod until, Apple created it back in what, 96 or whenever it was. What do you, listen to me very carefully. This is why it's important. If you have to convince people why they need what you're selling or offering, you better have a VC, angel investor, or some private equity behind you because it's going to cost you a lot of money to convince enough people to buy something that they're currently not spending any money on. Let me say that one more time. I need you to hear me. If you have to convince people to buy something that they are currently not spending money on, you have to have a lot of capital behind you to spend on marketing campaigns to convince people why they need the iPod, why they needed Uber. Does that make sense? Go back and look at how much money Apple spent on its iPod campaign back in like 95, 96. Go back and look at how much money Uber has spent on marketing and advertising. Go back and look at these companies that people want to cite because they created a new market and created a new product. Look at how much money they have to spend on PR and advertising and marketing because they've got to convince masses of people why they need a particular product or service that they're currently not spending money on. So let me go back in my remaining 5 minutes. As a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, your highest probability of success is by starting a business that provides a product or service that people are already spending money on. You offer what? A differentiation. You offer a unique value proposition. You offer a unique feature or benefit to what people are already spending money on. Because if you have to convince people why they need you or why they need what you're offering, most 99% of people starting businesses don't have that kind of capital behind them. Now, again, I'm not talking about tech companies. I'm not talking about ed tech or fintech or AI backed or AI substantiated. I'm talking about the typical business that a person is going to start saying, I'm going into business for myself. When you scroll Facebook and you scroll Instagram and you scroll LinkedIn, you've got a plethora of speakers, coaches, and consultants. You've got a plethora of marketing and and sales professionals and entrepreneurs, etc. Again, I'm not throwing shade on anybody's business, on any kind of business. I'm simply saying you have to have a validated business. I've got 3 minutes left. You have to have a validated business. As you guys are coming in, please drop your city and drop your state in the chat. You have to have a validated business. A validated business is a business where people are already spending money in that direction, but you have a unique value proposition. You have a differentiation. You have a unique way of delivering the product or the service, a unique way of executing it that causes them to take interest in what you're offering and are willing to exchange money with you, maybe even a little more money with you, depending on what your business model is. But at the core, what are we talking about? We're talking about a business is a separate legal entity that provides a product or a service to a client or customers that solves a problem for them. So whatever business you're in, whatever product or service you're offering, whatever you say is your thing that you're endeavoring to grow, is it solving a problem? Are people currently paying somebody else or some other firm or some other company to attempt to solve that problem, whether it be as micro as toilet tissue? Maybe you're a new toilet tissue manufacturer, distributor, or whatever, right? Or it could be as macro as a new AI platform. So at the macro level, typically when you're talking about shifting culture, shifting industry, shifting consumer sentiment, you've got to have some VC, some private equity, some angel investor money behind you to really push it out into the market. But 99% of all small businesses fall in the category of you're offering a product or service to a definite market of people who are already spending money in that direction. You simply need to redirect that money or a portion of that money. We call that market share. You're redirecting a portion of that money to to your entity. So a portion of the people who are already spending money in that area or in that direction are now redirecting that money towards you. It's called market share. So as we conclude today, number one, what I want you to remember, number one, drop your city and drop your state in the chat. That's number one. I want you to remember that. Drop your city and drop your state in the chat. That's number one. Number two, I want you to remember what a business is, what a small business is. A business is a separate legal entity. It's separate from you. It's a separate legal entity that exists to solve a problem for a definite client or customer base. It's a product or a service that solves a definite problem. Number three, your business, whatever it is an extension of you. It's separate from you, but it is an extension of you, which means that business isn't going to grow beyond the quality of your thoughts, the quality of your ideas, the quality of your decision making, the quality of your execution, and the quality of the product or service that you're delivering to customers. Right? So you have to understand that the business is an extension of you, but it's not separate from you. It's an extension, but it's not separate. The fourth thing I need for you to remember is that your business should offer a what? Unique value proposition. How are you different from other attorneys? How are you different from other accountants? How are you different from other bookkeepers? How are you different from other speakers, coaches, and consultants? How are you different from other manufacturers? How are you different from other hairstylists, cosmetologists? How are you different from other barbers? How are you see, your business has to offer a unique value proposition that creates a distinction so that people get something different when they get you. They feel something different when they get you. They have a greater value proposition even if they spend more money with you. And by with you, I'm also talking about what? With your firm. Because really and truly, if you're growing a business, the business has to have systems and procedures and processes that makes money without you. And if your business isn't making money without you, you don't have a business. You have a job. That's called being self-employed. Self-employed does not mean entrepreneurship, and it doesn't mean in business. It means that you are employed by yourself because you can't make any money unless you do what you do. But when you have a business, there's a system that delivers value, not you delivering the value. There's a system that delivers the value. So even while you're sleeping or while you're managing other projects or while you're dealing with staff or whatever else you could be doing, your business is still generating revenue because you're not self-employed. You don't own a job. You actually own a system. When you own a business, what you're telling the world is I own a system that generates revenue without me by solving a problem for clients and customers. Does that make sense? So, okay, listen, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here today. I told you I was not going to be here longer than 20 minutes. And we're right at what, 18 minutes. So for those of you who've connected with us this Tuesday afternoon, I appreciate it. Make sure you drop your city and your state in the chat. And then want to just call to mention that we do have a major, substantial, impactful business event coming up for those of you who are in the Charlotte area. You can go to register.advantagetomorrow, TMRW.com. Go to register.advantagetomrw.com. And if you're in the Charlotte region, if you're in the greater South Carolina, the greater North Carolina area, we have people who have registered as far as Raleigh, and we have people who've registered as far as Charleston. So that's about a 6 hour, difference. So if you're within driving distance, Damon John from ABC Shark Tank will be in person and we're hosting it on the campus of Winthrop University on May 31st. So if you're not in the area, listen, I know you know some entrepreneurs and small business owners in the greater Charlotte area. Tag them and say, hey, you want to be a part of that particular event that's happening in Charlotte. And if you want to find out more about me, of course, you're on the one of our platforms, but by all means, from a professional standpoint, from a professional standpoint, you can hit me up on my LinkedIn. If you know, for social, you can hit me up on IG as well. Normally, I'm in LinkedIn inbox and my IG inbox most often. Facebook sometimes, but mostly IG and LinkedIn. All right. So listen, continue to have a great Tuesday, and I'll be back. And we're gonna go into this a little bit deeper about how to build a legitimate small business, and I believe you're going to be made better as a result of it. Have a great day.